call this meeting to order. Kim, are we ready with the recording?
Yep.
Awesome, great. All right, so we can start with approval of the minutes, which are on board docs. Is there a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, minutes are approved, and that takes us to our agenda items. We've got policy review for the 500 series. Chase, Matt, do you want to say anything before we turn it open to questions from the directors?
Sure, just a couple of things. Good evening. Nice to be with you as always. There were a number of changes, more than we've had recently, given that we've reviewed this series for a few years in a row, but nothing that we saw is really extremely critical. I will point out there's a series of changes, 503.5.6, 0.6E1, 0.6R1 related to restraint and seclusion. Ashley's updated the board several times about our progress in terms of reducing restraint and seclusion across the district. This is work that we have some work slated this summer about changing physical spaces in our buildings to meet the new approaches that we've been taking over the last couple of years. The policies reflect some of that work that we've been doing. It was kind of a chicken and the egg. Do we go ahead and make the policy changes first, or do we do the physical change spaces first? Since the 500 to here now, their program is already implementing. We went ahead and modified the policies, and then those spaces will be in the buildings this summer. So just kind of a timing piece there, but also it just better reflects what we're doing from practice. So no reason to have it in policy if it's not our practice. Other various changes throughout the document. The 500s, happy to answer any questions that you might have. But really, just like I mentioned, some of the other ones better meet practices that we have in place or updates based on what we're seeing from legislation and things like that. But with those opening comments, turn it over to any questions on any of the changes.
Thanks, Chase, for going over the restraint issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if, as we adopt these and implement these differences in what's been done in the past, we make clear to the public and the community about our use of spaces. That seems to be one of the things that people are very
Sure.
interested in. So,
Definitely.
and the second thing I have is 502.9, interviews of students by outside agencies.
Mm-hmm.
The last sentence of that section reads, students will not be taken from school without the consent of the principal and without proper warrant. I'm not sure how to interpret that sentence in terms of whether both consent of the principal and proper warrant are needed. And so if the principal doesn't consent, even though the warrant that's presented supposedly is proper, that permission would not be available to remove the student.
Yeah, that's a good catch, Charlie. This is one that I actually did the review on, and so I've got to own that. I added a language in 2 paragraphs above that about unless legally prohibited from doing so, because there are those circumstances where we're not allowed, right? So I see the point that you just pointed out in that same vein is, yeah, whether or not a principal consents or not, if there is a legal warrant, we don't really have a leg to stand on in terms of not letting that student be taken, nor do we want to put a principal in that place of trying to get in the way of executing that. So we can strike that, or we can look at that little section of that sentence, or we can go back and work on some
I'm not
language
going
or
to
think through
qualify
it.
to make any suggestions.
Oh, you are. No, you are.
Well, I think it's fair to just strike the middle and have it say
Yeah.
students will not be taken from school without proper warrant.
Do we want to try to add like a notice requirement so the principal is notified? I mean, because
Well, I don't think that's.
but I mean, we can't stop them.
Right, and that's been our whole
Like-
kind of information to our principals related to some of the legislation that we can't stop a federal agency from doing those things. So anything that would inadvertently put our principals in a spot that would see them impeding a legal action, I want to
Could
probably avoid.
we say like, the district will make like all reasonable efforts to notify the principal as soon as possible. So then again, it's not law enforcement that has to do it, but I'm just thinking like if they come, say it's the principal is out of the building and it's the administrative secretary that like, just so that he or she knows, okay, I should call the building principal and let them know this is going on. Or maybe that's not necessary. I don't know if that's even, I mean, I would think they would do that anyway without it being in policy. But it seems like someone should tell the principal what's going on.
Do you think that first paragraph would always involve the principal? Because it says requests of law enforcement officers are made through the principal's office, so at least the staff there knows. Hopefully would notify the principal either immediately or as when the principal's available.
Yeah, we can work on it, because now that I think about it, I'm not sure that last sentence is right in either regard, because if there's a DHS situation, they might have proper court documentation, but it might not be a warrant.
Could you say warrant or court order?
That's what I think we just need to maybe rework that entire
Maybe talk to Allers.
last sentence.
Well, I was wondering what the sample ISB policy says. If that's really what they suggest for language, that's kind of a problem.
That is what, we
And
didn't-
Allers would have reviewed, my understanding is Allers reviews most of the stuff ISB puts forward, but it seems like they're missing some thought there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll rework it. Thanks, Charlie.
I had two little things. The first one, I guess I want maybe just kind of some thinking on, and that's 501.15. It's on page 22. It's about the waiving of athletic eligibility, and it says, we wouldn't waive it unless they meet a good cause exception. The part that's added, or the sending district has waived the ineligibility period. And I get it from the point of the two districts involved in the trading of the player, like have agreed to it, but I'm asking like what's the thought process behind waiving it in that case from the lens of what would the other surrounding districts think about the fact that you guys just shook hands on waiving athletic eligibility on a transfer, you know what I mean? Like if somebody came from Solon down here, would Clear Creek be in a stink because we didn't hold to the ineligibility period?
This came up a couple of years ago when we first changed it. And I think our thinking was the sending district is in a much better position to judge if any of the exemptions applied, like if there was bullying or harassment going on, and we didn't want to step into their shoes, not because we wouldn't know as many facts. I mean, I think, the surrounding districts may be like, oh, you guys are just trading players, but at least our thinking back then, and again, I'm guessing you put that in there based on that conversation we had, was we don't want to second guess. If another district says we should waive it, we don't want to second guess. The
Like
work
those
that
are
they put
bullying.
I have
into
a
it.
problem with it, I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to talk through it a little
Yeah.
bit, because I can see from external, like, it might look weird,
Yeah.
and if we have a good reason to have it, I'm not suggesting we change it, so I appreciate that. The other comment I have, and it is in one of the seclusion orders, 503.6, on page 61, and there's kind of the first change there where it's in green, there's an et cetera, and then crossed out other non-disciplinary physical contact. To me, when I read, physical strength does not include instructional strategies such as physically guiding a student during an educational task, handshaking, hugging, or et cetera, the et cetera is problematic to me. So I prefer the language that was originally there, but if we need to have something different, that's fine, but just putting et cetera there seems weird.
I think that's a good catch.
You're on 5036, Sean?
Maybe just something like or other similar.
Yeah.
Which page you say it was?
It's on page 61.
Thank you.
Other similar strategies.
Yeah, the original thing says, or other non-disciplinary physical contact. And I don't know what the problem is with that language,
Yeah.
it seems fine to me, I don't know why that changed.
Sure. I mean, I'd agree with you. I didn't necessarily make that change, but I can ask the question why, but you're right. If there's a problem with the language that was there, we can look at changing it. And even if there is a problem with the language there, you're right, et cetera is not a good substitute for that. So.
Well, I don't even know if you need the et cetera or this, because it says such as, and then it just provides some
Right.
examples, so that means it's not limited to that.
Yeah,
So I think maybe just a period instead of that.
I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
And I was behind because I was looking at your other point, Sean, and I was thinking it was a different policy, but that paragraph's kind of repetitive. It says exactly that, about 3 lines above it, about the sending district waiving it, and I added it because for some reason
Didn't capture it.
we repeat the comment again, so I just reiterated it. So it was actually already in there, I just put it in there a second time.
Really want to be really
Just to
clear.
make sure that we get it really clear that we're not gonna, I want everybody to be clear that we're only doing this if the other district does it first.
Policy so nice, we had to write it twice.
Exactly, exactly. But we will look at that, et cetera. And I'll go back and talk to Ashley about that one.
That's all I got.
I had 3 questions. 502.1 on page 32, why are we removing the link to the consent video? I just want, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, I personally like that video, I think, but maybe, I just want to.
Laura reviewed it and just didn't feel
Okay.
like it was appropriate.
Okay.
And I haven't had a chance to go with her, but that was recognition from her office.
Okay. And then 502.3 on page 35, that's the walkout, and it says if our students walk out and protest during the middle of the day, they're not allowed to come back. I know at least at City, sometimes they walk out over lunch, and I wondered what the reason was that we wouldn't let them come back for the rest of the school day, because it's important that they're in class.
I think in the past we've specified that they walk out off campus. And
Yeah.
I think we might have specified that we need to put in here, because we don't know where they're going, what they're doing, what they could potentially bring back. So I think that was the reason we wanted to be explicit that if they do leave campus, I don't know if we want to tie something in where if they stay on campus to walk out, the students can return after the walkout.
One part of it's disruption to the learning environment, right? I mean, like, depending on the time they walk back, like, if a wave of kids walk back in the middle of instruction, and so I think there's a few competing factors there that, you know, we never really allow them back in that sense. Like, now, if they're out in the yard or something and then they come back in a relatively quick fashion, we could probably handle that, but if they start getting into cars going and, you know, a group of kids come, but we don't know who's with them, like Lucas said, who they're, what they could be bring back in, if they come under the influence of something. I, you know, hate to give all the bad things kids can do, but I think that's part of the safety security issue, you know, is trying to balance that with concern. You decide to leave school for the day, we're not coming back if you leave for the walkout.
And if they only,
I mean, that's even if they're excused? Like if their parent excuses them?
I mean, parents give them awareness, but they've still chosen to leave. We typically don't excuse you to walk out. I mean, you've chosen to protest and leave school. Our expectation is you stay in school. If you choose to leave,
Well,
fine.
attendance policies wouldn't allow them
Yeah.
Right.
to excuse for that.
Right.
But it's not an excused absence.
At the point you're making about over lunch.
I can think of several where the City High kids have walked down to the Pentecrest, had their rally, and then they're done by like 12:30, and then they can walk back. But again, when we talk about all of our disciplinary protocol process and procedure, I've always heard it's terrible to take kids out of class. And our like we want them in class. It's important to be in class. Be in class. And this struck me a little counterintuitive to that kind of overall goal. But it's not a hill I'm going to die on, but it just made me feel a little uncomfortable.
We'd love them to protest after the school day.
Well, I'm sure you would. Listen, but they don't want to. They want to leave in the middle of the day.
They also don't want to come back either.
Well, that was one of my questions.
Generally, we
I
don't
mean,
get them knocking on the door to come back. True.
Are they coming?
Yeah.
Are they coming back? Is this like, or do they? That I meant to ask
most
that because
cases,
most
they
of them
have-
stay away. Then
Yeah.
it's not a big.
In
It's
most
not a
cases,
big-
it's in the afternoon, and we don't see many of them back afterwards. But I couldn't tell you exactly how many that would entail. coming back into the building.
Yeah, well, West High was always in a different scenario because it was too
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
Same with Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Southeast kids and, yeah.
It'd be Southeast.
I mean, like, I think part of it is it's hard, like, sometimes you write policies not like around discipline or things that could go around not assuming best intent, right? And so, like, that's a hard thing to say somewhat, but we don't know what's happening at the protest and the state of mind of people coming back, like, in a lot of different ways, right? Like, if everything goes swimmingly and it's a nice gathering and it's handled fine and it's a peaceful protest, coming back probably doesn't seem like an issue. But there's a lot of things that could go wrong in those situations too that I think is probably risky for our staff. It's probably risky for the other kids that have stayed in the building, back to the disruption of the learning environment. So I do think there's probably some compelling reasons we won't want to do that. I mean, it's one we could take back and definitely talk to the team about more. I don't think we probably see a lot of them coming back to start with, so.
Sort of a forced cool down period.
Yeah. I do wonder, like, it's a little bit of an issue if our middle school kids walk out, because I'm
Well-
guessing we've actually let them back in.
Yeah, that's right.
In
The
practice.
Southeast, yeah, they head right
Yeah.
down.
I mean, because they have to come back to get home.
Yeah, exactly.
So for high school, it's a little bit different.
In high school, I mean, if they're a junior, senior, and it's an open period.
Why don't we just take this one back to talk about anyways, because I'm a little concerned based on everything going on, that
We
we're
can think
going to
about
see some
some kind of
walkouts.
language like-
Yeah.
That's what I was
it's like,
thinking.
At
Yeah,
the
I-
discretion
yeah.
of the principal, Yeah. they may or may not be allowed back. Or
Might not be a
something.
bad time for us just to visit
Yeah,
their
it's somebody
secondary
to make a
team.
decision.
Because I think we've seen, not necessarily with this policy, but some of the ones, is that you find a legitimate waiver for a certain class period, and all of a sudden, you're protesting everything during fourth period because you don't want to come to fourth period.
Yeah.
Right? And we saw that with some lax on some other guidelines, where all of a sudden, students were doing the same thing in the same period, and so it became a proxy for something else. So at the discretion or looking at those patterns, I think there are a number of different reasons where we want to protect students' rights, but also make sure we can maintain integrity in the school at the
Yeah,
same time.
I mean, Greta, whatever,
Yeah.
she had the big pen press, you know, I mean, we had families.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So what number was that?
502.3.
Ken's probably got it.
And then my last question was 505.8 R1 on 115. That was like a whole new, and a policy, and it's very long, and it had a code site, and I just wanted to know if that's now required by law. And it's on page 115, sorry.
505.8
It's
R1.
parent and family engagement on district-wide policies.
It's
This one
it's
is
an
required.
ESSA required
requirement?
regulation.
ESSA,
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
ESSA
Okay.
requirement.
That's-
Is what we have. And I'm just gonna let you add anything else there, Liza. No?
No, we had just, the only thing that we had changed was in policy involvement, under the one, that it was the district will host, we just said the district will host at the building level. Most of these things would be seen around, like, our Title I parent nights, or just other ELL parent nights where we're engaging in the academic process.
Yeah, one thing just to draw your attention to if you're done with questions.
Yep.
On 501.15G1, voluntary transfers, with the Dear Colleague information, we'll probably have to look at some language on our website about the voluntary transfer forms. So those aren't specifically in policy, but you have a link to the website that mentions that. So there could be some language change for that, for the specifics on that policy, just moving forward.
What was the section again?
It's 501.15G1. Basically, our
24.
elementary voluntary transfer policy, Charlie.
Thanks.
Yep.
Change the language that's on that link.
Well, so the form goes and it says equity balance transfer. I'm not sure we'd be in bounds to keep calling it an equity balance transfer. We're probably gonna have to, what the data point we use is really SES indicator, and so it might be as simple as calling it SES balance transfer, something to that effect, but we haven't solidified that yet. I'm just telling you operationally, we'll probably have to make that change.
Any other questions on the 500 series? Then we also have policy updates to the 100 series. I don't know if you want to say anything, they seem to me pretty straightforward.
Yes, just name changes
So,
and
yeah.
things, no real substantive changes.
All right. Well, great, agenda setting, we'll have our next meeting in a month, and I'm assuming we'll do the 600 series.
Looking forward to it.
Can't get anything by you.
Wow, I'm a sharp one. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.